road out of nowhere. How can they even call this a road? Tybalt kicked dust, sent a little scatter of stones off the track and into the mud. This isn't a road. It's not even a path. Getting angry at the road is definitely helping fix this broken wheel, grunted Samson. The burly young man was sweating despite the chill, bracing the wagon while Gregory tried to do something about the twisted mess of wood and metal that had, until recently, supported the listing wagon. Tybalt grunted something inaudible and stalked over to stand near his two companions. "This is the worst thing about the marches," he whined. "I've seen garden paths that are more like road than these. Whatever these are." "Yeah, much worse than the constant Jotun invasions," snapped Gregory. "Worse than the random shark heralds, the people asking if you're from round here, and the fact you can't get good wine in this entire nation for love nor money." Tybalt ignored him. He checked the wagon again. 20 wooden boxes cheerily embossed with the logo of the Right Virtuous Company, Provisioners and Victuallers. He wrung his hands. It was starting to get dark, and there was no sign of anything except big, empty fields in all directions. "We've got to get to Mead before the end of the week, or we're going to lose our bonus," he reminded the others for the third time in half an hour. "We can't afford to default." "I know," Gregory snapped back. "We all know. It's not as if anyone planned to hit that pothole, or to be going fast enough to buckle the wheel." "Oh, so now you blame me for," sputtered Tybalt. "And it wasn't a pothole, it was a chasm, and anyway." "Go and see how Hector is doing," said Samson through gritted teeth, "before I lamp you." Tybalt bridled, and it looked as if he might complain, but saw the look in Samson's eyes and thought better of it. He went to check the ox, placidly chewing on some greenery of some kind along the side of the so-called road. "What are we going to do?" he asked rhetorically. Hector ignored him. "We've miles to go, and this mud track isn't getting any better, and it's getting dark, and bandits, and what if all this sausage attracts the wolves? You get wolves in the marches, right?" The ox considered as behind him Gregory let out a burst of very harsh language indeed. One of Hector's stomachs burped and grumbled, and he went back to chewing contentedly on what would, in a few hours' time, turn out to be something he really should not have been eating. Overview. At the autumn equinox, the Imperial Senate instructed Grancia y Lopez Higuera to appraise the impact and opportunities to link the unconnected citizens of our southern, northern, and eastern territories with new road networks, to join new and existing road networks together, or to provide citizens with alternative means of conveyance that would afford them similar benefits. Granciana is renowned for her unusual techniques. A life as a well-travelled corsair and merchant has given her a wealth of experience to fall back on. She is immediately enthused about the project, opining that it is so open-ended and potentially impactful that she couldn't hope to complete it in a single season. Highways. The Senate can use a single commission to extend the existing road networks to Mitwold, Mornwold, Skarsind, Sermasuak, Weirwater, and Herkinia. Currently, it would cost 300 wains of white granite, 900 crowns, and take a year of work to complete. The road would raise the level of investment in farms and businesses by 1 in all of the effective territories, increasing revenue by 36 rings. The blood-red roads that link the cities of the Imperial Heartlands have proved effective in raising the long-term prosperity of the Empire. Since their construction, similar road networks have been established elsewhere: the Iron Roads of Varushka, the White Roads of Highguard, and the Sunset Roads of the Brass Coast. The Pilgrim Trail of Calavesa is a little different, since its purpose is to support virtuous travellers, rather than assist with travel and trade directly. The benefits of the blood-red roads are clear. They function as a great work that boosts the income of farm and business owners in the territory. Granciana has looked at the costs and benefits of extending the existing network in all Imperial territories that don't currently have any major road network, but in many cases there are problems. Thorunin, Bregersland and Calavesa are far too wet and marshy to support a good road network, while Spiral, Zenith, Redoubt and Morrow are too mountainous. The Empire could build roads in the Barrens, but that has problems of its own given the volatile political situation there. However, that still leaves Mitwold, Mornwold, Skarsind, Sermasuak, Weirwater and Herkinia that could all benefit from a good road network. Granciana's work shows that currently the Empire could extend the road network to all 6 of these territories for 300 wains of white granite and 900 crowns. It would require a single Senate motion and a single commission slot and take a year to complete. Once the work was finished, it would raise the level of investment in all 6 territories by 1 for both farms and businesses as major settlements, and especially the trade hubs that were connected together by fine roads. The appraisal is straightforward, so this opportunity remains available to the Senate for the foreseeable future. These costs would increase by 25 wains and 75 crowns for each improvement in the level of investment in farms or businesses in any of the territories in the meantime. Marshways. Granciana proposes an alternative to roads in Calavesa, Thurunin and Bregasland. Currently, it would cost 225 wains of weirwood, 675 crowns, and take a year to complete. The marshways would raise the level of investment in herb gardens and businesses by 1 in the 3 territories. A new imperial title would be created in each territory to administer the marshway and deal with threats. 2/3 of Calavesa is marsh, and the remaining 1/5 is relatively wild forest. Bregasland is even worse. 4/5 of all the land there is fenland. Those parts of Thurunin that are not sodden are invested with forlorn. The 3 territories are also similar in that the people there tend to live in relatively isolated communities on a few areas of comparatively solid ground. There are also trods aplenty looping through the marshy territories, but they rarely take the shortest route between 2 points. But the Senate did not only specify roads in their appraisal. All 3 territories have a strong tradition of boat use, not seagoing ships, but various incarnations of flat-bottom skiffs and punts that pole the shallow waters of the fens. There are also examples of sturdy workboats that dredge the fever water or fish the gullet. Granciana proposes that the Senate could invest in the infrastructure of these territories by establishing a number of ferries, riverside wayhouses, strategically placed bridges, jetties, portage rails, and boatworks that she refers to as marshways. Such construction would serve much the same purpose as roads, benefiting businesses by improving the ability of imperial citizens to move around the territories in question. They wouldn't be much use to farms, unfortunately, but they would be useful to those who oversee herb gardens, a common undertaking in all 3 territories, making it easier to transport the surplus from the sort of isolated locations that are ideal for growing magical herbs. Marshes are, by their very nature, prone to problems not encountered with roads and bridges. The fens of Bregasland have their underwater spiders. Thurunin is inhabited by Valorn spawn, giant insects, and spiders, and Calavesa sees more than its fair share of troublesome ghosts, and possibly spiders. All 3 territories have to deal with the potential threat of marshwalkers. As such, Granciana's plans include offices and an imperial title to oversee the marshways in each territory. In each case, the position would need to be appointed by the tally of votes to be effective, but would benefit from the opportunity to purchase spare herbs cheaply. Granciana's proposal is not cheap. It requires 225 wains of weirwood, 675 crowns, and would take a year to complete. Once complete, it would raise the level of investment for businesses by 1 in each of the 3 territories. It would also raise the level of investment for herb gardens by 1, providing 2 true vervain and 1 seasonal herb: marrowwort in spring, cerulean mazarine in summer, roseweed in autumn, and bladeroot in winter. Bregasland. The Bregas ferry master would have offices based in Ottery and would have responsibilities to ensure the marshway is maintained. Given their role, it is likely they would also quickly become a go-to figure for local families to help mediate their disputes, a potentially useful lightning rod given the current state of Bregasland. Calavesa. The Shadow of the Marsh would have offices and a private jetty at Rundhull. They'd oversee a ministry that allowed them to purchase herbs, but also a little liao from the pilgrims along the trail here. They'd be responsible for protecting the fens, but for also ensuring no harm comes to the Sovereign, a matter on many local minds since the recent battle at Rundhull. They'd also likely be asked to help intercede in disputes between the halls who'd benefit from the marshways. Thurunin. The title of Brand of the Fens would ensure the marshes remained safe, which is no mean feat in Thurunin. They'd also be responsible for keeping the more isolated steadings connected to the nation, addressing issues with bandits, wild beasts, and Valorn spawn, and would likely be called into any issues involving the Great Forest Orcs. They'd oversee a ministry that lets them buy herbs, but also a small amount of forest resources. Southern Skyways. Granciana is intrigued by the possibility of building roads in the skies above Urizen and Spiral. Granciana spends a month in Urizen, visiting various spires, discussing their needs and listening to ideas. She is soon busy with the architects, many of whom are keen to present their own schemes once news of the Senate's appraisal begins to spread. There's particular interest in establishing a trade road connecting cargo with the Crucible of Fate. Unfortunately, the nature of the Urizeni territories, mountains, hills, vertiginous drops and barely civilized valleys, would make such a thing a major undertaking, assuming it was even possible. As a frustrated Granciana is about to give the whole thing up as a bad job, inspiration comes from an unexpected source. The Arch of the Sky was once a collection of spires on the Star Stair, the tallest mountain in Zenith. Stargazers and astronomancers from across the Empire gathered there to observe the night sky and debate the net of heavens. As well as being a prestigious school of astronomancy, it was also one of the finest observatories in Urizen, if not the Empire, but it was destroyed when the Druge invaded Zenith in 381 YE. Despite the best efforts of a handful of battle mages and sentinels, the Orcs captured and looted the Arch of the Sky, and what they could not steal was reduced to ashes and broken ruins. The recent completion of the Crucible of Fate, however, has encouraged some Urizen to return to their former home and try to salvage the ruins. Using Ushabti to clear the rubble and begin laying new foundations, they have discovered something unexpected. White granite. Lots of it. On the top of what may well be one of the tallest mountains in the Empire. When Granciana hears of the discovery, she immediately takes a trip to visit the site personally. If the Empire is to expand its road, it will need white granite. Early assessments suggest there is a lot of white granite to be found atop the mountain, but getting at it, mining it, and transporting it down the mountain and to an appropriate trade hub is going to be extremely difficult. Touching the sky. Completing the Skyway would require 150 wains of mithril, 450 crowns, and take 9 months to complete. Once complete, it would create a new bore seat, producing 18 wains of white granite each season. It looks as if the white granite is going to remain unexploitable, and there are some historical notes that suggest that is why it has never been quarried in the past. Following a throwaway comment from one of the Urizen about it being a shame that white granite cannot be sent through the air the way the Heliopticon sends words, Granciana has a brainwave. Inspired in part by the washing lines that stretch between houses in Tasato, and in part by the great cranes of the city of Cargo, she proposes the construction of a unique bridge, connecting the Star Stair to the lower peaks at Kalei. By stretching mithril cables across the valley between the two peaks and using Ushabti to provide motile force, shipments of stone could be wheeled through the air from one mountain top to the next. Pick the right peaks and use the occasional lift where needed, and the Skyway could be extended all the way through Operus, past Canterspire Circle, until it reached Cargo, whereupon it could be transported across the river to Bastion. It's going to require significant investment. In addition to the tools, materials, and specialist Ushabti created at the Crucible of Fate, the Bridge of Air would need to be extremely strong to transport the white granite. The engineers calculate it needs 150 wains of mithril and 450 crowns of investment to complete. Once opened and connected to the Arch of the Sky, it would represent a new Bourse resource. The Imperial Senate could declare it imperial or national, meaning it would be appointed either by the Bourse auction or by tally of votes. By estimation of the geomancers and stone watchers who have visited the location, it would produce 18 wains of white granite each season and have an upkeep of 10 thrones each season. The problems of its isolated location would be offset by the use of Ushabti rather than labourers to remove the valuable stone. One flaw is that the Arch of Sky could never be rebuilt, not while the mountain is being quarried. Granciana has proposed that the new Bourse seat be named after the destroyed spires, and given the way the stone is to be transported down from the peaks, it seems apposite. Still, that might turn out to be too steep a price to pay for access to the white granite. A road in the sky. A bridge of the air could be extended across Urizen and Spiral for an additional 75 wains of mithril and another 225 crowns. The resulting great work would increase the level of investment by 1 for mana sites and businesses in Morrow, Zenith, Spiral, and Redoubt. The mana sites of Spiral would only benefit from the great work if the Senate stopped funding mana for the Urizen within the territory. The Bridge of the Air would be a true wonder, but it would also be practical to employ the arrangements for lighter uses, such as transporting people or trade goods between spires. It would be possible to extend the network of towers and cables across the territory and into Redoubt, Zenith, and even Spiral. The same principle that establishes the Arch of the Sky in Morrow could be used to join up Morrow, Redoubt, Zenith, and the Mountainous Spiral by linking smaller skyways to it. Lifts would help to transport people and goods from the lowlands to the highland spires, and conventional roads could be used where they can actually help. The Skyway would dramatically improve the ability to move around the territory. Anything that makes it easier for people to move around is usually an asset to business, and the Skyway would be no exception, increasing the level of investment by one businesses in all 4 territories. There are relatively few farms to speak of in the mountains, and not that many herb gardens, but the Skyways could make it much easier to reach some of the more inaccessible parts of the 4 territories, the kinds of location where mana tends to pool. As a result, it would also increase the level of investment by 1 for mana sites in all 4 territories. Granciana notes that the entire project, the Arch of the Sky, the Bridge of the Air, and the extension of the Skyways across Urizen and neighbouring Spiral, could be completed with a single appropriately worded Senate motion and a single resource-intensive commission. Barrens. A road network connecting the Barrens to Semaholm and Holberg would require 50 wains of white granite, 150 crowns, and take 3 months to complete. It would raise the level of investment in farms and businesses in the Barrens by 1. It would enable Dornish citizens to take a new resource in the Barrens for free for the next year. The situation in the Barrens is fraught, to put it mildly. Granciana has no interest in engaging with the politics, and given the recent mandate, she consciously tries to avoid any suggestion of building roads across the Wild Territory at this time. Instead, she focuses her attention on Dawnguard. The region is in bad shape since the long occupation of the Druge. The Towers of the Dawn are in ruins. The defeated orcs of the Malum did as much damage as they possibly could before they were driven out or killed. People are left to pick over the pieces as best they can. There's never been what could be considered a really decent road leading to Dawnguard. Granciana proposes changing that, and ropes in several Dornish engineers and her old friends from Holberg to come up with a plan. To avoid a single point of failure, Granciana proposes linking Dry Castle, still the largest human settlement in the Barrens despite the Druge's best efforts, to both Laker in Semaholm and the city of Holberg itself. It will include the construction of a highway through the forests of Axmere and a sturdy road from the southern gates of Holmau. These roads would provide a route for building materials to reach Dawnguard reliably, which would help dramatically with the rebuilding there, supporting the Dornish inhabitants of the Barrens. It could also be extended if desired, if the Dornish begin to establish settlement in other parts of the Barrens, or where there is a desire to improve travel between the Septs and the Empire. A road from Dry Castle through Murderdale to the Eaves of Paytat, for example, would give potential of trade with the Great Forest Orcs, and to establish the possibility of a road linking Semaholm and Thorunin. Granciana's proposal will cost 50 wains of white granite, 150 crowns, and take 3 months to complete. As well as providing support to Dawnguard, it would also increase the level of investment in both the farms and the businesses of the territory. It would also make it easy for engineers and builders to reach the Barrens, meaning that any new settlements established would quickly be linked to Dawnguard by a serviceable road, spreading those advantages across the territory. As a result, any Dornish citizen would be able to take up a new resource in the Barrens for free for the next year after the road was complete. Of course, that might not be an advantage everyone is looking for, but you can't lay down roads without making it easier for people to move around. Road Wardens. The Navarre way houses could be encouraged to take a stronger stance protecting the Empire's roads. It would require a clear statement of principle by the Navarre National Assembly that achieved a greater majority, but would not require a commission. It would create the Road Wardens opportunity for Navarre military units, allowing them to protect the Empire's roads from banditry and worse. One of the problems with all of these roads is the increase in banditry. While there's been some hard lines taken in Varushka, the fact remains that these roads make it easier for those who prey on trade to find people to prey on. Inspired by the Camcrag being built in Caraman and by the Navarre tradition of establishing way houses across the Empire, Granciana has another proposal. She suggests asking the Navarre to step up their efforts to patrol the Empire's roads. The way housekeepers of Navarre could be encouraged to set aside areas for road wardens to rest and resupply. Obviously, the Navarre Stridings use the trods where they can, but they are frequently seen on the Empire's roads as well, but travel is a part of their national character. Granciana was unable to draw up a plan to support Senate investment, but instead proposes during her visit to Thorunin that the Navarre National Assembly could take the lead here. A suitably worded statement of principle that achieved a greater majority would simply encourage people to formalise what a lot of them are already doing. Navarre travelling by road would help protect the various travel networks across the Empire. Minor difficulties would be dealt with by local road wardens, and anything they couldn't deal with would be quickly and efficiently brought to the attention of the relevant authority. At the very least, a well-worded statement would create the Road Warden's adventure available to all Navarre characters with military units. When undertaking this adventure, Navarre would be involved in escorting individuals and caravans along Imperial roads, hunting out bandits and natural threats, protecting road-building engineers, delivering messages and occasionally popping up to Varushka to fight wolves, and otherwise being active on the Empire's roads. A basic military unit would receive 120 rings and 3 random resources each season, with more for upgraded or enchanted units. Long-term economic investment. Completing the existing road network would raise Imperial taxation by 1 throne in every territory with a transport network. If the marshways and skyways were both completed, Imperial taxation would increase by 1 throne in every territory with a transport network. Improving the road and transportation networks across the Empire would provide long-term economic benefits. If Granciana's proposal to build the roads in 6 additional territories were completed, then trade would flourish, which would help support the creation of new businesses. As a direct result, the tax revenue of every territory in the Empire with a functional transport network, any great work that is a highway, marshway or skyway, would increase by 1 throne. If the marshways and skyways are also completed, they would have a similar effect, boosting tax revenues for every territory with a transport network by 1 throne. These benefits are cumulative, so if all 3 proposals were completed, then the total increase in taxation would be 2 thrones for every effective territory. Cost and timing. This opportunity is open-ended. It could be undertaken at any time. Costs would increase by 25 wains and 75 crowns for each improvement in the level of investment in the meantime. Unruly elephants in the room. Any large-scale construction project would be threatened by the presence of an army in the territory where it was taking place. As with the appraisal prepared by her colleague Elian Sweetwater, there is an unfortunate fly in the ointment. All of the projects Granciana has laid out rely on the territories where they are being established, remaining at least relatively stable. The presence of scions of the Cold Sun, or invading barbarian armies, would potentially impede the completion of these grand projects. Just with the recent events in Karaman, it is risky to try and undertake a grand construction project while part of the land needed to make the project go smoothly is under threat by barbarians. This will need to be taken into account during any implementation of Granciana's proposals. As with the Spider's Dream, however, an Imperial army would be sufficient to protect construction work in a territory from anything but a concerted attack, one that would almost certainly see a conjunction of the Sentinel Gate. If there are no such protections and work is underway when the enemy invades a territory, they may be able to steal some of the materials contributed in a given season and delay all work whilst they were present. Granciana doesn't intend to be a doomsayer. Same is true of any large-scale project the Empire undertakes, but she feels like she would be remiss in her duties if she did not point out the threat of, for example, Cold Sun killing large numbers of road-building engineers.